This is your daily Solana debrief. It's the 27th of May, and we've got some bearish news from someone quite popular and quite knowledgeable in the space. Then we've got plenty of other news on other stuff. So let's dive in, let's cover everything. So firstly, just quickly looking at the prices. Bitcoin is doing okay. Sol also doing okay relatively, and ETH is doing much better. It's starting to climb up to its kind of all-time highs, which is it's currently down 20% from there. Whereas if we have a look at Solana, it's currently 36% from its all-time high. So as you may know, Dr. Profit puts out a post on Sunday, and let's go through this quickly. So this is just his view, and we're going to go through some traders' viewpoints. Nothing's financial advice, of course, and people are going to disagree with each other. They've got different strategies. And remember, all a trader has to do to outperform the market is to be right the majority of the time, like 60% or something like that. Anyway, he says now Bitcoin is moving sideways between the 67 and 70K region, and sooner or later, market makers will decide to send Bitcoin into the absolute supercycle by limit breakthrough 74K and higher. Now, if we go down further, probably the main takeaway here is while clowns and retail investors have been selling, we have seen one of the most powerful ETF inflows in the last week. Whales have been accumulating with aggressive strength. So essentially, if you sell, someone else is going to be buying. If the people that are buying it are bigger whales, they generally can control the markets. And if you want to sell your Bitcoin, your Sol, your ETH, you're most welcome to. Hopefully you're in profit. But if you just start selling up here and then a whale just keeps on accumulating it, it's highly likely the price will go higher and then you'll regret it. Having said all that, if you're in profit, taking some profits is always a smart idea. Not financial advice. Mag says there's many similarities between the 2016 cycle and the current 2024 cycle. He refers here to the RSI surging from 60 to 90 3 times before the price eventually peaked. I've touched on RSI before, but it's a relative strength index. If you've never heard of this, it's probably best that you go and search on YouTube for a short, 3 or 4 minute video that goes through it and really teaches you what it is. But it's a momentum indicator used in technical analysis. It measures the speed and magnitude of a stock or crypto's recent price change to evaluate overvalued or undervalued conditions in the price of that asset, essentially. And traditionally, an RSI reading of 70 or above indicates an overbought situation, so a time when you should be selling, and a reading of 30 or below indicates an oversold condition, so traditionally when you should be buying. So Mags thinks this looks like from 2016 through to basically about January 2018, where the RSI goes up high, comes on down, dips a little bit, up, down, up, down, up, down. And what we've seen is the RSI going up to 90 and then coming down. So maybe in his opinion, the time to buy, it will go up again. Maybe you want to take some profits and down it goes and so on. But RSI is just one tool that a trader uses. Now, the thing with trading is you have to follow a trader and you have to follow what they're going to say the next day and the next day. If someone says, I believe Bitcoin's going to go to $75,000 because of this reason, and then something changes in the charts and they update and say, you know what, I'm short-term bearish, you have to then basically invalidate the thing where they say it's going to 75K. Now the new news is it's going to say 66. So that's why we follow the same traders essentially. St. Pump says 66 to 67K is key to hold on the daily to keep the bullish momentum going. And in other words, in his opinion, if it drops below 66K, then we could see the price go down a little bit. Now I'll cover this. Some people will be unhappy with me and some people will be fine with it. Basically, I don't care if you're left or right. Just ultimately, if there's a government that's more willing to accept crypto, make good guidelines for crypto, and push crypto into the future, then I think that is a good case to support. You can read this yourself and you can see what he says, but Donald Trump says he's very positive and open-minded to cryptocurrency companies. Our country must be the leader in the field. If the US isn't the leader, they lose these companies and they get created somewhere else, like the Cayman Islands or somewhere in Europe, and they may still hire people in the US, but quite often you're not even allowed to use the website. As an example, I'm pretty sure Kamino Finance cannot be used by someone in the US. Now some time for some very bearish news. This is from Blunts. I've had a couple of comments over the last, few months where people have said, why am I following this person? And they don't value his research and his viewpoints. And some people are fine with him. It's just a different viewpoint. Now, I found that Blunts had a pretty decent run in the previous cycle. He did really, really well. I'm sure he had some crazy calls at one stage. Sometimes I followed his calls, I did well. Other times I did not do well at all. He also got some things entirely wrong. Like, as an example, he spoke about XRP boosting up decently and claiming all-time highs. He mentioned that in the previous cycle. Now here, his bearish news is he basically thinks that Solana has topped. He follows this theory, Elliott wave theory, And this is where it goes up in waves. It goes up in waves and then it comes down in waves. I'm not incredibly familiar with it. You can go watch a video on it. But basically, this is 6.5 minutes. It'll be linked. You can watch the whole thing if you want. But just to give you the quick TLDR, he's essentially saying that this is 5 waves. It didn't manage to actually reclaim the all-time high, but he thinks the top is in. And now he thinks that Sol is going to come on down to $70 or thereabouts. Then it's going to chop around. And as it's chopping around, what's going to happen is ETH is going to outperform. He does say we can see some chop down to like 120 and then down to about 70. And then he'll change it to Sol ETH. Now for quite some time, Solana versus ETH has been outperforming incredibly. You can see it lost a lot of value and then just bam, huge amount of value. Then lost a little bit, gained some, lost, gained, and now it's losing. ETH is outperforming. Bluntz believes that Sol is not going to outperform. He doesn't think it's going to outperform at all, and it's going to go down and down and down, and ETH is going to go up and up and up. Now, ultimately, whatever we want is actually really determined by big market making whales, and they do really set the scene. However, having said that, I don't believe this is going to be the case. But watch yourself and you can decide, because maybe you want to start to also accumulate a little bit of ETH. Also, the amount of engagement that he has got off this one post is completely insane. So you will be seeing it on your timeline. You may as well watch it and you can decide yourself what you think. Trader Cos says there's a lot of bear posting on Sol last couple of days, but in his opinion, the chart looks fine. If the price bids into the 150s, he will bid it up. So he will be buying in the 150s. Topo mentions this as well. The final load of FTX Sol cleared out at $102. All the FTX Sol is sold off per people smarter than me. In other words, there could still be some actually sitting there to be sold off, but Topo is well enough connected to have the data that, in his opinion, it's all been sold. People calling for double-digit Sol, 90, 80, 70, are ignoring institutional floors being set. My gut says that Sol isn't sniffing 102, but that's just me. Now, I do agree with Topo. Of course, there's times in history, such as Luna, a lot of institutional buyers went and bought Luna and it went to zero. But that was because it was it's a rebalancing crazy mechanism that just didn't work. However, when it comes to Sol, I don't think it's going to go anywhere near $102. I think there's a lot of upside. The chain works. I know that ETH will get some more attention. So maybe a DCA into Sol and ETH might be a good idea, even if you're not actually using the ETH on chain. But I'm just giving you some information to basically counter Bluntz's argument. Curb has his viewpoint. The thing is, there's no technical analysis or anything. There's no video or big thesis on why he is still very, very bullish. But the overall sentiment, I do agree with. One thing to keep in mind is the ETH market cap tokens, they have a lot more liquidity at present. They've been around for quite a bit longer, and that's just a reality. But on the subject of this, and the subject of basically an altcoin on these two, we can see that Uni reached a $25 billion market cap, and the dupe price is currently 1 to 2 billion. So it's not even 2 billion, but let's say it is 2 billion. That could potentially push the price up 14x, which I personally don't think it will get there anytime soon anyway. But the point is, there is a whole lot of upside in this market. Now away from pricing news and just onto the actual news. So the Jupiter LFG vote has concluded. D-Bridge has won with 59% of the vote, and they'll be launching on LFG over the next few months. DiviBet and Exchange Art, they will not be launching, of course, but they gained a lot more traction. I imagine they're going to go and do their actual token distribution pretty soon. And I imagine they've learned some more things in terms of marketing and just getting more people involved in the community. Slorg and the core working group will be conducting a feedback session to involve the community in discussions and improvements, including whether or not to continue with blind voting. Personally, I think blind voting was definitely a pro. And there was over 217 million dupe participating, so remember to go and stake your dupe and to go and vote. Now, there's so many things happening with dupe, and if you've been missing them, fair enough. Basically, Fabiano thinks this is why dupe could be going to a decent price, over $3 sometime soon. He's mentioning things that have already been talked about, but here some of them are. The Great Migration, basically getting a whole lot of people to use mobile, essentially using dupe on your mobile. The Giant Unified Market, so this is where you can go and get stocks and gold and real estate and all these different assets as they partner with more companies that are building it on chain. You can just go to dupe and just go and buy $10 worth of some real world asset or something like that. And then the Global Decentralized Stock Exchange, which also fits into the Giant Unified Market. But of course, it's about actual stocks being launched on the blockchain, and that's where they live. So have a read through here. Personally, I do a little bit of a DCA into dupe, and I just go and stake it. About once a week, I stake it, and then I make sure that I'm voting on the proposals. Jussie has an airdrop update. So Sanctum, you should be using Sanctum if you're happy with the risks of an LST and if you're just kind of holding Sol. Uprock, you put it on your phone, you use the extra bandwidth. I think it's very, very worthwhile. D-Bridge, right now, I'm just bridging little transactions back and forth between multiple chains, trying to get my points up. And yes, I'm just paying fees. And I'm thinking that I'm going to get more tokens than my fees are worth. And I actually think D-Bridge is amazing. It is the best bridge I've ever used, ever. And so I was pretty confident that they would be winning first place in the LFG vote. And I also think they deserve it. Then there's a couple of other airdrops that I haven't covered. You can look into these. And of course, with Dupe, best way to get your airdrop is just by voting. Now, I mentioned before, you may want a little bit of ETH in your portfolio. One way you could potentially do that is by holding JLP. Also, if you hold JLP, you can go to Kamino Finance. If you go to Kamino Finance, go to the app. What you can do, if you like, there's a little bit more risk involved, of course, but you can go and deposit your JLP into this market. Then, if you want, you can go and borrow some USDC. The borrow rate is quite high. Then, if you want, you can go and swap it for JLP, put it back in, and you can essentially leverage up your JLP position. If you're interested in doing this, I can do a short video covering it. There is a solution coming out that will be able to leverage it for you in the future, Adjustria Finance. But for now, this is something you can do yourself. And if you don't actually remember, if you go to perps at dupe.ag and then we'll agree and then click on earn, you can see that the JLP pool actually has Sol, ETH, Bitcoin, USDC, and USDT. The amount of ETH it has in the portfolio is around 10% and around 11% of BTC. So this is one of the reasons why JLP has just been steadily going up, because it's essentially like an ETF or a basket of different tokens. Now, next up, Uprock. Their token launch is coming up soon. And if you watch this video, you can watch it here or on YouTube, you'll see that Meteor has designed a fantastic sniper bot. And although it's not loading for me right now, Ben Chow takes us through it, and it's worth watching, and it's a great tool. I'm loving it. Also, with the Uprock tokenomics, if you wanted to work out how they work, you can watch this short video. And also, Gaimin has started to do buybacks for GMRX. The token price is still down significantly, and the trading volume isn't crazy high. So I'll work out to do a little bit more research, and I'll give you my thoughts on this coming soon. So your actionables, not financial advice, of course, but secure a DPioneers NFT at dpioneers.com. I've gone and secured some. I didn't mention in today's video, but I've mentioned it quite a few times. Provide some LPs in Kamino's Meteor pools. You get the Kamino points. You also get the Met points. If you're into betting, you can use DiviBet, and make sure you're doing it with your Bonk Rewards wallet, because you might end up getting some more Divi tokens. And just the usuals. DCA into Sol on Dupe and stake with Validate.com. Use Uprock and Grass, and use D-Bridge Finance. That's all for today. Catch you in the next video.